Hey, what's going on? Today we're going to be making a couple of Eggy in the baskets, or a piece of bread with a fried egg in the middle. What we're going to be cooking with is a cast iron pan. This is a seasoned cast iron pan. It's actually been cooked with multiple times. If you do go out and get a cast iron pan, check out online or follow the instructions on seasoning it. It's essentially just an oiling process that makes it a lot more non-stick. Doesn't mean you don't have to use oil when you cook with it. It just means that when you do, things don't stick to it quite as often. So what we're cooking with here is a four element range. It's electric, so it's got a low 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then a high. I'm going to turn mine on to about a 3.5 just to start heating up. I'm going to get out my bread. And I'm cooking with this Nature's Place whole wheat bread. And the big thing about it isn't to look at what says on the package, but to flip it around and take a look at the ingredients. And that's really what's going to tell you what's going on with this bread. The ingredients are stone ground whole wheat flour, water, honey, yeast, soybean and or canola oil, cultured wheat flour, salt, and it contains 2% or less of each of the following: sugar, wheat, gluten, soy lecithin, malt, and vinegar. I mean, it's nice when you can read the ingredients and you don't need a chemistry degree to be able to understand what they are. The other thing to do is take a look at the total grams in there and compare it to the number of grams of dietary fiber. You want to have at least a 1 to 15 ratio. That means 1 gram of dietary fiber to every 15 grams in the piece of bread. This has 3 grams of dietary fiber in a 43 gram piece of bread. So that's just under the 1 to 15. And that, falls in as a decent thing. You want to stay from the enriched flour, you want to stay away from white flour, and you want to stay away from any hydrogenated fats or high fructose corn syrup. But and the other nice thing is you can pick up a loaf of this bread for under $3. This was $2.59 at I believe it was Hannaford. But if you're willing to look at Wally World, Shaw's, Hannaford, all those places, you should be able to get a 24-ounce loaf, not a 20-ounce loaf, for about $2.50 to $3. So, I'm going to be making a couple of these today. I don't know if I said that already. I got my 2 pieces of bread. My lady friend might be a little amiss. I only made one for myself. What you do is you just cut out a little hole in the center on each of them. Save that little piece of bread. It'll be good for a little piece of toast to go alongside your piece of toast. Alright. Got some Great Value brand vegetable oil here. Of course, no hydrogenated oils in that. Put in a couple of tablespoons of oil. Spin it around. Shake a little salt in it. Take your pieces, place them in, get them nice and oiled on one side, flip them over, get them nice and oiled on the other. Now is the piece de resistance, and that's a little bit of butter placed in the hole in the middle before you crack the egg in there. Now, as I go to put this butter in, I'm going to move it from 3.5 up to about 4.5, the level at which I'm going to cook and fry the egg in. Taking a little bit of butter, dropping it in the center of one, taking a little bit of butter, drop it in the center of the other. As it gets nice and bubbly, show you what we're working with. Try not to shake it fast. See that? You want it to get nice and bubbly in there. Take my egg, I crack it right on a flat surface. Bit of advice my brother gave me that works better, even though it seems a little counterintuitive, than cracking it on a curved or pointed surface. Now essentially what we're doing here is frying an egg sandwich. We're really not using all that much butter, but you know, let's call it how it is. We're frying a sandwich. And a lot of people say, hey, fried food, isn't that bad for you? Shouldn't you stay away from fried? Doesn't have a lot of fat in it, you know? Well, yeah, but fat's not bad. I mean, what we're learning, it's refined carbs and refined sugar that you need to stay away from. High fructose corn syrup is the bane of obesity and diabetes, not fat. And specifically, it's the type of fat, the partially hydrogenated or the saturated fats in animal. It's not the saturated fat in oil that's going to kill you. And the little bit of butter I put in, I mean, it's probably going to be about a tablespoon for both sandwiches. Well, that's a serving size of butter. And, you know, the majority of the oil and the butter in this come from plants. Speaking of which, I'm going to have myself, while it's cooking here, a glass of So Delicious coconut milk. It's awesome. It's mostly saturated fat, but the kind of saturated fat it is readily usable for energy. They're called MCFAs, multi-chain fatty acids. You don't need to know that, but this is delicious. It's got a creamy consistency of milk, but it's coconuts, long revered as part of the tree of life by indigenous people in islands where coconuts are grown. You can go pick it up at Wally World for under $3 a half gallon, cheaper than organic cow's milk, and it's delicious. It really is. I use it in my cereal. I use it in my coffee, also with a little splash of half and half, and I drink it cold and creamy. You can check out one of my other videos on making coconut oatmeal with it, and it's great. So I actually took it off the heat while I hunt myself down something to flip it with. And that's just a good technique. If you feel like it's getting a little hot, you can just move it to another burner. It doesn't have to be cooking on the element the whole time. It's cooking right now in the pan. So before I flip it, I'm going to take a smidge of butter. I'm actually going to put it right on the egg on each of them. Work myself under. And voila. Myself under. And voila. Now that I've flipped it, I'm going to move it right back to the side. And let it continue to cook. And I can't get over this coconut milk. I mean, I've only been drinking it for about 6 weeks now, so I'm leery to tell you it's the end-all be-all, but I'm not trying to cut dairy out of my life. I just acknowledge that drinking milk the way that our grandparents used to isn't necessarily good for us or really good for the environment. So coming up with a way to enjoy milk and also to have something else in our diet that can kind of substitute it some of the time, not necessarily just for health reasons but for environmental reasons, well, it seems like it's just the responsible thing to do. And I can't get over this So Delicious coconut milk. If you're really looking for a dairy alternative, it hands down knocks out of the water the rice, soy, almond. But if you're not looking, I wasn't, and I still cook with butter, and I use milk here and there, and I think half and half is the way to go if you want to richen up something. But if you're looking for something like that, you know, if you're just a health conscientious person like I am, you can't go wrong with it. You really can't. Now, these little pieces of bread I told us to keep around for later. I'm just going to kind of duck in there. You notice I took it off the heat again because these are cooking just fine. And it's a nice way. It might cook a little bit slower, but it guarantees that you won't get your stuff burned. Back on the heat for a second. Whew. Some hot stuff. Looking good, looking good. But while that is finishing up, it's got just a couple of seconds. Actually gonna just turn that right off the heat. Put it right over in there. Put it right over in there. Give a little spritz down where I a little egg. So these bad boys are finishing up right here. And over here we got ourselves a couple of Eggies in the basket.